Hello M3, this is Teacher Win and welcome to another video about genetics. So for this video, we are going to learn about different genetic disorders. So before we go, let's define first what is a genetic disorder. So it is an illness or a problem or a disease caused by one or more abnormalities in your genes or in your chromosome or in your DNA. So as you can see in the example here, so you can see a child that has a problem in his lips. So this is what you call your cleft palate. And also you can see here the set of eyes of this child. And also it can be, look at this girl here. So it can be the problem with her eyes and also in her nose and then in her lips or maybe in her mental development. So that's how you define genetic disorder. Since genetic disorder is a big topic, so we will limit only to chromosomes. So in a chromosomal genetic disorder, again, chromosomal genetic disorder, so your chromosome here is affected, wherein that chromosome is missing or duplicated or otherwise altered. So like for example, if this is like your chromosome here, so missing, so it can be maybe this one. It looks like this. So there is like the missing part here. So this is like the case of your Cray-Duchat syndrome. Or it can be duplicated. So like for example, if you have like instead of one pair has two copies, so what happened is that it's duplicated, so it becomes 1, 2, 3. So this is like the case of your trisomy disorders. There are many causes of your genetic disorder. So number one, it can be during the pregnancy wherein the mother may be taking antibiotics or maybe taking drugs or maybe of the food intake, or it can be like exposure to radiation. So there are many causes of the so-called mutation of your genes which can later cause genetic disorder. So if you look at in your molecular level, or if you can still remember your lesson about meiosis and mitosis, so the problem in your genetic disorder originates or started from your meiosis. Because remember, your meiosis is the cell division of your gametes, the cell division of your sperm cell, and then your egg cell. Wherein what happened is that the chromosome pair fail to separate properly during cell division. So it fails to separate during your anaphase. So that time, if it fails to separate during the anaphase, so either the egg cell or the sperm cell may end up with a second copy of one of the chromosomes. So in your chromosomal genetic disorder, so we will divide it into two. You have your autosomal disorder and your allosomal disorder. So if we talk about autosomal disorder, it talks about the chromosome number 1 up to 22. Okay? Because these are your body chromosomes. And if we talk about your allosomal chromosome, so we are talking about chromosome number 23. Again, allosomal talks about chromosome number 23 or your sex chromosomes. So in your autosomal disorder or problems of your chromosome 1 until 22, so we have 4. Trisomy 21, trisomy 18, trisomy 13, and Cray-Duchat. And for your allosomal disorders, so we have your Turner syndrome, we have your triple X or the XXX syndrome, we have your Klinefelter syndrome, and your Superman or your XYY syndrome. So for this lesson, we'll begin first with your autosomal disorder. So we will be talking about the trisomies and your credential. So before diving to the different terms or syndromes of your book, so let's have first a vocabulary of these terms. So you have here in your book, you have the word aneuploidy. Aneuploidy. So an aneuploidy, it means an abnormal number of chromosomes. So normally we have 46 chromosomes. So in your aneuploidy, so it can be like 45 or maybe 47 number of chromosomes. If we talk about monosomy, monosomy, so there is one missing chromosome. So it can be like a part of it or the whole chromosome is missing in your monosomy. So instead of having like 46, so you can have like 45 or like your 45.5 because a small part of that chromosome is missing. And then we have your polysomy. Polysomy. So there's an extra copy of one or more whole chromosomes. So it can be like instead of 46, you have 47 chromosomes. And then finally, we have your trisomy. Trisomy. So a trisomy is a type of polysomy in which there are three copies of a particular chromosome. So of the first trisomy, so we will begin first with trisomy 21, or also known as your Down syndrome. So it's very common. Of the three trisomies there, trisomy 21 or Down syndrome is the common. So the problem is that there is a third copy. If you look at the other chromosomes here, from chromosome 1 to chromosome 20, each chromosome pair has only two chromosomes or chromatids, right? However, in your 21 here, so instead of having two, there is an extra copy, so it becomes 1, 2, 3. So this is the problem in your trisomy 21. So that's why tri means 3. So 3 chromosomes in this set. And this chromosome or this problem was discovered by John Langdon Down. That's why trisomy 21 is named after him. So here are some signs of we talk about your trisomy 21. By the way, if we talk about syndrome, here syndrome means collection of signs, collection of like things that you can see in a problem. So that's why it's a Down syndrome. So in your Down syndrome here, so you can see here the common thing that you can observe if you have trisomy 21 is the face. So this is like, remember the face of a trisomy 21, so the eyes, its nose, what else, the set of ears that they have. It's really like you cannot find these signs in a normal person, right? And also in your palm of your hand. So look at your hands. So normally we have like three, like one, two, three creases or three like lines on your hand. However, in your Down syndrome, it's more common to have one. So have one line that is in your palm, and then also the set of eyes, the set of ears, the set of, the space between his or her toes. There's a gap in it, and then they also have like white or wide tongue or fissured tongue, which is common among adults. Next is we have your trisomy 18 or your Edwards syndrome or trisomy E, wherein the problem here is that there's a third copy of your chromosome number 18. So the other chromosome counts are still normal, like one chromosome 1 has each pair, like two chromosome sets here, but in your trisomy 18 there's an extra copy. Okay, so please take note, there's an extra copy of chromosome in your chromosome number 18. And the one who discovered this one is John H. Edwards. In your trisomy 18, it's very common among females. And to have this disorder, your trisomy 18, so you will live only for less than 1 year. So some of the children who were born were like they will die at the time of birth, or maybe they can live like one day or maybe 2 weeks, but more or less they cannot survive at least 1 year. So it's really a heartbreaking truth about trisomy 18 or your Edwards syndrome. So what are the things that's common in your trisomy 18 is that at the back of their head, something like, or the occiput, so it's prominent, so it's sharp end here. So what else? So they have the malformed ears, so they're like sharp ends here, and then the clenched hands with overlapping fingers. What else? They have the small mouth, small jaw, short neck, and then they have like prominent, meaning an obvious chest here, and then they also have like the rocker's foot, and then they also have like the flex big toe and prominent heels here. And the last of the trisomies, we have trisomy 13 or your Patau syndrome or your trisomy D. So in your Patau syndrome, so there's a third copy of your chromosome number 13. So, speaking of your Patau syndrome, so your chance to survive if you have trisomy 13 is lower than your trisomy 18 or your Edwards syndrome. So, more or less, most of the cases, the moment that they give birth, they will die in that day, or maybe maximum of like 1 week. So having this disorder, so it's really like it's pitiful to look at these children to have this trisomy 13. So look at their what are the signs? What are the signs and symptoms to have this one? So you have the malformed ears, the hands clenching, the undescended or abnormal testis. We have here the small head, your cleft lip and palate, and then looking also at the picture. So it's really difficult for those children who have this trisomy 13 to survive. So let's have the summary of your trisomies. First is you have your Down syndrome, which is also known as your trisomy 21. Edward syndrome to have your trisomy 18. And then your Patau syndrome is you have your trisomy 13. Okay, so in your trisomy 21, so there is like 3 copies of your chromosome number 21. So let me just draw this one. Okay, so something like this. So this is chromosome number 21. So this is 21 and also 21. Okay, so in your Edwards syndrome, so you have your 3 copies of chromosome number 18. So we'll have like this 1, 2, and 3. And then 1, 2, 3. So we have like 18, 18, and 18. And then in your Patau syndrome, so there's 3 copies of your chromosome number 13. So you have like 1, 2, 3, and this one. So we have chromosome 13, 13, and 13. Now, if you're going to ask me which is the most common here, so trisomy 21 is the most common of these 3. And then your Edwards syndrome is less common. And then your Patau syndrome is very rare to have this disorder. Okay? And speaking about like for every birth, how many chance will the Down syndrome appear, the Edwards syndrome will appear, and Patau syndrome will appear? So according to studies, so for every 800 to 1000 birth, there's a 1 chance that you will have a Down syndrome. there's also one chance for every 5,000 birth. For every 5,000 birth. And then in your Patau syndrome, there's a chance of having like 1 in every 16,000 birth. So that's why it's a rare form than your Down syndrome. That's why Patau is very rare compared to Edward and Down syndrome. Okay, if you're going to be asked like which one is deadlier, Down syndrome, Edward syndrome, or Patau syndrome, so you have to go back first with the arrangement of chromosomes. So there are like 23 pairs of chromosome, wherein chromosome number 1 is said to be the biggest, and chromosome number 21 is the smallest. So from that size alone, so you can tell that the higher the number of your chromosome, like for example, if you have a problem with chromosome number 1, so there's a big chance that the the disorder or that the problem that you might have is deadlier compared to the others. So let me just draw for illustration here. So in your Down syndrome, so the size, right? So it was like the size, this is not the actual size, but let me just represent it this way. So as the number goes bigger or as the number goes higher, so the size also gets bigger. So this is like 21, this one is 18, and this one is 13. Okay, so as the size gets bigger, so there is like overexpression. So overexpression is something like intensifying or make it stronger expression of that gene, because this time instead of having 2 you have 3 copies, right? So there will be excess traits, or you will be having excess expression of traits to have this trisomy. So that's why um, the size itself will reveal how lethal is to have this any kind of trisomy here. So in your Down syndrome, since the size is very small, so there will be like few genes overexpress. Overexpress. And then for your Edward syndrome, so there's like more genes overexpress. And then in your Patau syndrome, there's like a large number of genes overexpress, because the size is now bigger compared to 18 and 21. So since if there's like few genes expressed here, so it's likely to be less lethal or something like less dangerous. Let's use this one, less dangerous. So that's why you have a bigger chance if you have this Down syndrome to survive, right? And if you're female, so there's a chance that you can have birth, you can give baby, okay? However, if you are like a male, so this is the bad side for males to have Down syndrome, so they cannot give baby or they cannot give birth if they want to get married, okay? So in your Edward syndrome, since there is like more genes overexpressed, so there it is like more lethal or more dangerous, so your chance to survive is very very slim. So there's like a less survival rate. And then in your Patau syndrome, so it's the most lethal, so it's the most dangerous of the 3, so you have the least survival rate. Okay? Okay, so we have another autosome disorder. So we have your cri du chat. So actually it's a French word. or another word is the 5p minus syndrome. So wherein there's a missing part of your chromosome number 5. So M3, I want you to look at the arrangement of the chromosomes, right? If you look at chromosome number 1, it's the biggest, right? This is what I mean earlier, that as the number gets bigger, so also the size in opposite, it's getting smaller as well. So meaning if you have like trisomy 21 here, so look at the size is smaller compared to like your 18, so that's why it's lesser, it's less lethal compared to 18 and 13. But anyhow, let's go back to your cru du chat. So what problem is that there's the missing part of your chromosome number 5. So if this is like your chromosome number 5, if this is like your normal chromosome number 5, this is the normal. So in your cru du chat, so there's like, oh, there's a missing part here. So where's the missing part? So what do you think will happen if you miss this part, right? If you don't have this part, what if this part controls your vision? So there's a chance that you cannot see. What if this part controls the formation of your heart and then your lungs? Then you will have like a problem later on as you grow bigger. And this cru du chat, or also known as your Capgras syndrome, so it's named after Dr. Jerome Lejeune. So it's a French word, so it's a bit difficult to pronounce. I'm very sorry, M3. So in your cru du chat syndrome, so the common feature that is obvious is like when they cry. So they cry like a cat. So can you just imagine that one? You're crying that sounds like a cat. That has something to do with their larynx. Larynx is also known as your voice box. Larynx is the one that is responsible for making your voice. So if your problem is your vocal cords or your larynx, then your speech, your ability to talk or ability to talk clearly is affected. And also there is excessive drooling, meaning there's like saliva, meaning more water coming out from your mouth. And then there's a problem with that mental retardation, meaning your IQ is not that high compared to normal people. So that's why it's very important to understand them, because their survivality, meaning their ability to survive, is longer compared to the trisomies. So some studies, they said that it can reach like 40 years old or 50 years old, but you have to take good care of them properly to survive that very long. So that ends our lesson for this video, M3. So I hope you understand about the difference of the trisomies and your cru du chat. And for the next video, we will be talking about the problems or disorders of your sex chromosomes. Okay, so once again, thank you very much for listening and have a good day. Goodbye.